Minnesota Bound. Presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems.
Well, hi, I'm Belinda Jensen, meteorologist here at KARE 11 and an alumni of Minnesota Bound. We are so excited this evening to celebrate quite a milestone, the 1,000th episode of Minnesota Bound, which is a benchmark for local television. So joining me this evening is, of course, the founder of Minnesota Bound, Ron Schara, his daughter Laura Schara, and Bill Sherck. Of course, you're the hosts that have now taken over. And it's so exciting to be here at KARE 11 with all of you.
Well, thank you, Belle, for sure.
Well, this is quite a milestone, as we mentioned. So I understand the show, Ron, almost didn't even get off its feet. I mean, it almost didn't happen.
Very true, very true. I was doing 2-minute pieces for KARE 11 called Minnesota Bound. Somebody came up with the idea, let's do a half-hour show. The powers that be upstairs looked at that and then decided that wouldn't fly. It was too expensive to do. So I went upstairs to see what kind of future I had. And during the discussion, it came out, the station manager said, well, can you produce a show? I lied and said, yeah, I can. And he said, well, if you produce it, we'll buy it from you and you'll own it. And by the time I got downstairs, a videographer named Joe Harrowitz said, I'll be your guy. And that's how it all started.
Wow. And we're talking 1995. So 26 years ago. So for someone, I don't know if they have to be living in a cave if they haven't seen Minnesota Bound, but how would you all actually explain Minnesota Bound? What is it?
I always explain Minnesota Bound as it's a magazine lifestyle show that shares the stories of people who love Minnesota and all of that it represents in the world of outdoors and nature. And we try to capture people, places, interesting characters, conservation, habitat, that sort of thing. So it really is a lifestyle format that we always try to bring happy stories to everybody.
Yeah, and don't we need that these days?
Yes.
And the storytelling and the pictures are so gorgeous. We love all of your stories. Bill, how would you explain it?
I think on Sunday nights we put people to bed and do so and put them in a good mood, right?
Right.
After the newscast, they get to laugh, they feel some emotion, they see all these great destinations, meet all these characters. We're making people feel good. Yeah. And I think that's the whole point. And that's why people love it, we hope.
There are so many characters behind all the stories, and we're going to actually all kind of tell our favorite stories coming up. So how exciting, 26 years. Congratulations.
Well, thank you, Belle. Just to add to what Bill and Laura said, we specialize in storytelling. And I've always believed that from the time we were children, your mother putting us to bed, she'd read a bedtime story. Our caves, when we lived in caves, had stories on the wall. So I'm a firm believer that we've never gotten over the love of stories, and that's what we try to do on Minnesota Bound.
Yeah, and so many of them over the years. Well, we're going to actually touch on many of them in the next half hour. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. I really do appreciate it. And don't go away, because coming up we have a lot. In fact, we're going to demystify a few theories that are out there, like, are Bill and Laura married? We're going to answer that and many more of your questions coming up.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems, North Dakota Tourism, Star Bank, and by Rapala.
Welcome back as Minnesota Bound celebrates their 1,000th episode. We're back in the KARE 11 studios, and you know, I remember, Ron, back in February of 1995, that's when the show launched, 26 years ago. I came to KARE 11 in 1993, so I'd been there about a year. It's 1994, and you and Joe Harrowitz came in my office and said, I was a weekend meteorologist, and like, hey, do you fish? Are you kind of like, you know, asking me, hey, do you want to do a story? And I remember my first story was about a romantic couple who went ice climbing on the North Shore. But I actually didn't go to the North Shore. You guys shot it, I just voiced it. But then from then on, I had a chance to do so many fantastic stories. So I appreciate the fact that you walked in my office that day.
So why did you want her?
Because women were participating more in the outdoors, and I wanted a female presence on Minnesota Bound, and you filled that role perfectly.
I always laugh when I talk to people about Minnesota Bound. I say, yeah, I was the token female, and I'll do that any day. And I also say that I went ahead and did all the stories that Ron didn't want to do. All the sports you didn't want to do back then. Yeah.
Frozen waterfalls.
Yeah, water skiing down a waterfall. Yeah, a lot of different things that I had a chance to do. All right, so, you know, this show is, of course, has so many stories, and we want to talk about how you handed the torch down to Laura. When did that occur?
About 2 years ago, we decided as a company that Raven III was getting old, and we didn't know how much time she had left. And before that sad moment would happen, and if I was still hosting the show, it would just make things difficult. So we decided, Bill and Laura were in the wings. Bill's been working for me for years, and Laura kind of took your place. Some wild game cooking as well. And so they worked good together again. We wanted the male-female because women are playing a bigger part in the outdoors.
Yep.
So I said goodbye, and Raven and I walked off, and it was maybe a year later she was gone.
Oh. And the great thing is that you, of course, still tell so many stories on the show, and we get to still hear your voice. So, Laura, when you got asked, of course, you were doing the show already, many parts of the show, but when you got asked to host, what was that like?
Oh my goodness, big shoes to fill, of course, and it was an honor to be asked to fill that position. And Belinda, just so you know, when I first started, when my dad said I took over your position, that's not true. I approached my dad and asked if I could do segments about doing things in the outdoors right downtown Minneapolis. And
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, it was called Wild in the City. It was my little segment that I had, and my dad met me for lunch. It was very much a business-like meeting, and he said, well, we'll give you a try on a volunteer basis.
What a deal.
Yes, and I think it was on a volunteer basis for quite a while, to be honest.
I got the same speech.
Did you? Funny. So as years passed, I think I earned my keep at that point. So when my dad passed the baton to Bill and I, it was a big honor to have the opportunity, and my dad put together a really strong foundation for us to carry the torch. And Bill and I have worked together for a lot of years and are very comfortable, sharing the spotlight together, and we hope that we can continue sharing the stories just as my dad has for so many years.
Yeah, absolutely, and you are.
You
so
don't
Bill,
want to screw it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about your beginnings at Minnesota Bound.
Well, I got the same speech, right?
Volunteer?
I love your writing, but I can't hire you. So I was actually freelancing. Remember World News Tonight, that big national show? Freelancing there and writing stories about people doing cool stuff in the outdoors in Minnesota. This is quite a story. On a Friday afternoon, we were walking out of the office and my phone rang. I took the call and I said, yep, okay, yep, I'll be there Monday, babe. And the photographer looked at me and said, who was that? Well, it was one of the other guys in the outdoor world. And my phone rang at like 10 o'clock on Friday night, and I had a full-time job with Ron Schara Productions.
So we need to thank that other guy for you.
Well, I always get asked, was that really him calling you? I said, yeah, it was Babe Winkleman calling, all right. And I made a darn good choice.
Yeah, you sure did.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
So there's all sorts of rumors that you're his son, you are married.
Yeah,
the
it's
two
really
of
weird,
you.
right? How does that work? We're married, yet he's our dad.
Yeah, exactly. Super weird. Super
Neither
weird.
is true.
No.
I'm just this guy who was lucky enough to get hired, right?
Yeah.
To work along the Schara family.
And you're a hockey coach and
And a soccer coach and a dad and happily married to Katie Sherck. So yeah, it all worked out.
It's funny, we've been working together for a lot of years because we were hosting another show previous to Minnesota Bound, and when we get together to shoot what we call wraps, introductions to the show and such, we now will match our clothes without even having conversations about it. So it is a little weird.
We're in sync.
But it's true, like we're always in sync that way, so it's been a lot of years together.
I know how this works because everyone still thinks I'm married to Bobby Jensen.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
So I
exactly.
kind of know how this works. All right, well, still ahead. We still have a lot to get to. Of course, 26 years of telling stories. There have to be some favorites. We'll share them with you when we come back.
Closed captioning provided by Treasure Island Resort and Casino.
I'm Belinda Jensen. Welcome back. We are celebrating the 1000th episode of Minnesota Bound, the stories behind the stories, and we're talking about roughly 2,650 stories have been told in 26 years. It's really remarkable. You know, when I think of my favorite stories, I worked for the show for 12 years, and I had a chance to travel all over Minnesota and actually all over the nation. So when I was thinking about it, I loved learning how to fly fish on the North Shore. I also had a chance to sail in the Apostle Islands with my parents. My mom had to get off the boat because it was really windy and she didn't like it at all. And last but not least, but seriously, my favorite story I've ever done in my television career, 31 years, is I had a chance to release a turtle back into nature in Hawaii that lived at the Minnesota Zoo its entire life. It was remarkable.
I paid to send you to Hawaii?
You didn't pay for any of this. I got it all figured out.
No wonder I had to volunteer.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I had a chance to do a lot of fun things. So thank you. I did learn really how to fish a lot better as well. All right, so now we have our favorite stories, and I know it was probably very difficult to come down to your favorite. So Ron, tell me about the armless angler.
Well, that's one of my favorites because it's such a shocking story. I tell it like this. I went fishing with this guy one day. He ran the boat. He started the motor where you have to pull it with a pulley, reeled the fish in. It was a bluegill. He took it off the hook and let the bluegill go, held it up to the camera, let the bluegill go, and he did it all with no hands or arms. Another part of it was when I first met him, you know, men meet and they go, well, hi, how are you? Well, he didn't have any hands or arms. Yeah. He held up his foot, and I go, so okay, I shook his foot. And then he didn't say anything, and when I left, he said, Ron, thank you. I said, for what? He said, for shaking my foot. He said, people think feet are dirty. I eat with mine.
All right, now we're going to go to Laura. Laura, tell me about the Dragonfly Festival.
Oh my goodness. One thing I love about this job is each time that I'm out shooting a story, I learn so much about something that I didn't really have that much knowledge on. And the Dragonfly Festival is a festival that still goes on each summer. It's held by Three Rivers Park District, and they teach you all about dragonflies. And I had no idea, first, how important dragonflies are as an environmental indicator to our environment and the health of clean water. So that was one. Two, the baby nymphs live underwater for 3 years before they even come out to be an actual dragonfly. And dragonflies are prehistoric. And so the Dragonfly Festival is so educational, and it's great for families. They send you out to a field to try to catch a dragonfly. The kids were way better at it than I was. But that was just one story that really stuck with me, and how much you can learn. And there's so many programs that Minnesota offers that are either free or very affordable for families to learn things about nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. And of course, that just lends back to your saying of bring a kid into the great outdoors, right? And so important to do it. We know that vitamin N, nature, is so important, and great idea to get out there and really enjoy it. Okay, so tell me about Caitlin, Bill.
Oh man, try to do this without getting too emotional, right? All of our stories are about people. At least my favorites are, and we did this story about this girl who loved to fish with her dad on Mille Lacs. And we went to a fishing tournament on Mille Lacs in her honor, because dad lost his little fishing buddy. She was killed on her way to a high school football game. And dozens of people show up every year to fish walleyes on Mille Lacs, to think about Caitlin. And to see dad putting on the tournament for his fishing buddy, right? Just moves you. Those are the stories. That's what we do.
You know, turning tragedy into something of a tribute, right?
Celebrating her life. She loved to catch fish. And those are the stories that we want to gather because they move us, and we hope that they touch every person that we broadcast to.
I think so, yeah, because every family has a story, you know, and and the great outdoors really lends itself to so many wonderful experiences that people have. So yeah, telling the story is a good thing.
We love the outdoors. Minnesotans, I mean, we're like #1 in boats owners and way up there in fishing license sales. There's 500,000 people go hunting deer. I said, there could never be an Indiana bound. no problem, Indiana, but you know what I mean.
Yep, I do. I know. We're really, really lucky, aren't we? That's for sure. Well, up next, the past, the present, the future of Minnesota Bound. We'll be right back.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Radco Truck Accessories, Pearson Salted Nut Roll, and by Totem Resorts.
Well, today we celebrate the 1000th episode of Minnesota Bound. I've had a chance to be a part of it. I'm an alumni, and joining me here this half hour has been so fun. Of course, the founder, Ron Schara, and the hosts now, Laura Schara and Bill Sherck. So we thought we'd say, hey, you know, we all, of course, didn't get pushed out into the outdoors. We all love the outdoors. That's why we're a part of this fabulous show. So what do you do when you're not shooting Minnesota Bound or out on a Minnesota Bound story, Bill?
Oh, I'm chasing the boys around, right? My real wife, Katie, and I have 10 and 12-year-old boys, and they fish, they camp, they hunt, and that's in between school and soccer and hockey, and, you know, the gig, right? You never stop.
All right, how about you, Laura?
My goodness, I love doing anything that's really active, physically active. So I'm really into health and wellness. I work out a lot, but as far as outdoor activity, I love hiking. I do a lot of hiking actually out in the state of Washington. So my boyfriend Dan and I, we also have a home in Washington. So I go back and forth between Minnesota and Washington, and we do hiking both here and there. And I also went deer hunting in Hawaii and went access deer hunting in Hawaii last spring. And that was a big adventure for me. That was my first deer hunt. And I hired a guy to do it, and no cameras were with me, and I just wanted to prove to myself that I could be a provider and fill my own freezer. So it was a really, really cool experience.
And is it good?
It's amazing.
Wow.
Access deer is amazing. I highly recommend it. I think they are in Texas and Hawaii. If you have an opportunity, we don't have them here in Minnesota, but it is very delicious wild game.
Now, Ron, we know that you live on that beautiful Rum River. You love to be outdoors, and we know that you have a secret lake up north that you always go to. So what is your favorite thing to do, as I guess we should ask, because we know you have a lot?
Well, I have lots of hobbies, outdoor hobbies. Whether a camera is with me or not, in April, I'm probably chasing wild turkeys. That's a huge passion of mine. I've been doing it for so long, I can't believe it. The other thing that I do that surprises a lot of people, I used to be a nightclub singer, and I still sing some country western stuff at the state fair and record a few things. And I enjoy it for myself, but I like to surprise people that they never knew that I had this singing career.
Yeah, tell us your name. The name of your band was?
Well, I used to sing with the Edgewater 8.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
at the Edgewater Inn, which is now defunct, which probably says a lot about my singing. But I need to add, too, that Bill, Laura, and myself, we have another young guy, Travis Frank, writes some scripts and does stories. But we're surrounded by a staff of videographers who are awesome in their own right. And as you know, TV is not a one-man show. And so they add a lot to it, never get any credit, but they're behind the cameras and they deserve credit too.
Amazing editing, amazing shooting. They're all here with us tonight, so thank you so much.
And he used to hire only award-winning news photojournalists by design. He wanted them in the field, focused on telling the best story instead of, oh wow, that fishing looks great, I'd love to pick up a rod. And it was a brilliant play, right? Because we all learned how to tell great stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1,000 more shows, folks? What do you think?
Laura will get there.
I don't know if I have 1,000 more years, but as my dad had mentioned, it never surprises me, and sometimes it does surprise me on how endless the stories are. And it just is due to the fact that people are so passionate about the outdoors and conservation and habitat and just getting outside in any manner here in Minnesota, that the stories just keep coming. So it's been an incredible journey so far. I'm so thankful, Dad, that you allowed me to volunteer back in the day. And I hope that we can continue for many more years.
If I'm around for show 2000, Belle, I'll be the story.
You already are, Ron. You already are. Oh, well, you know what? This has been so fun to talk about this because it is, as we mentioned at the beginning, a benchmark for local television. And just to think of all those stories and all those beautiful places that you've brought all the viewers to.
And you.
Yeah, well, thank you. I had a wonderful time being a part of it as well, so thank you so much. Ron, on behalf of Ron, Laura, and Bill, thank you for watching Minnesota Bound, and again, 1,000 more shows.
Cheers. Well done.
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433.